Welcome to Eat Well, Travel Often, a podcast about food, travel, the environment, mind, body, and spirit. I'm Melissa Goldberg, and over the course of my adult life, I've been focused on how to build an integrated community around food, health, wellness, and the environment. These are all related. Understanding these interrelationships helps us look at life as a holistic system and teaches us how to connect with each other to create a loving and thriving community. On Eat Well, Travel Often, I talk to farmers, foragers, cookbook authors, doctors, scientists, and entrepreneurs. All have one thing in common. The people I speak with are trying to better everyone's lives through their work and passion. These are the people who inspire me to be a better person. I hope to share with you my curiosity from everything from book to plate. And the goal of these conversations are to inspire you to eat well and travel often. Dr. Ron Weiss is not your typical doctor. His primary care practice is located on a 342-acre farm in Long Valley, New Jersey, where he grows beyond organic produce for his patients. Otherwise known as the farm doctor, he believes that food is medicine, and he believes in a farm-based healthcare system. Dr. Ron Weiss is an assistant professor of clinical medicine at Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School and founder of the Ethos Farm Project, a semifinalist in the Rockefeller Foundation 2050 Food System Vision Prize competition. In 1992, Dr. Weiss's father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. At the time, he was an ER doctor in Los Angeles and returned to New Jersey to take care of his dad, who was given 3 months to live. Dr. Weiss would not accept the prognosis and turned to the local library to find out ways to help his dad heal. He put his father on a whole food plant-based diet, and he ended up living for 18 fruitful months. Dr. Weiss, thank you so much for joining me. You are known as the Dr. Farmer. What does this mean, and how did you start?
Well, I didn't give that name to myself, so I don't exactly know what it means, but I guess I could hazard a guess. I'm a physician and a farmer, and I do both. I take part of both in both professions. And both professions are deeply meaningful to me. I see both professions as professions of healing and of caretaking. And one is of being a physician, or medicine is the profession of taking care of people and healing people. And to be a farmer is to be a healer of the earth and our environment, and also to be a healer of people. So I have the great fortune of practicing both at the Ethos Farm Project in Long Valley.
Prior to moving back to New Jersey, you were an ER doctor in LA. And then in 1992, you moved back to help your father, who was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. What was his prognosis when you first moved back?
He was given 1 to 3 months to live. He was at an end stage of metastatic pancreatic cancer and was very sick. We took him to the best cancer hospital in the world, and that's the prognosis he was given. And he was told there wasn't really any effective treatment other than including chemo, for which there was really no response. And he went home to prepare for death.
And you didn't settle for that. So what did you do?
Well, I as well as my siblings and my mother were devastated, and because I had spent my training taking care of such patients, and giving them chemo and always seeing a dreadful outcome of death within 6 to 12 months. So I decided to start to explore what I didn't know. And I went down to the library and just public library and started opening books on alternative medicine, which at the time was all the rage in a new area of study in medicine. And I read about all kinds of things, which seemed odd to me, like vitamin treatments and chelation and Laetrile and shark cartilage and Chinese medicine and herbs. And I found a book which detailed testimonies of people who had survived cancer and had thrived while eating a macrobiotic diet. I took this book home because it had one specific testimony of a man by the name of Mr. Arnold, who survived the exact same cancer my father did and went on to later found the University of South Carolina School of Public Health. I presented it to him, and he took it hook, line, and sinker and agreed to go on this diet.
So I read that you have a degree in botany. Did that also help you decide on ways to treat your dad? Did you use that knowledge as you were delving through these books?
No, not at the time. It didn't, I never really, although I was pre-contemplative, really, in many ways, at least compared to the way I am now, about the way plant foods could revolutionize somebody's health. Because although I did study botany as an undergraduate student at Rutgers, and although I did go to medical school, the two were never put together. And I was never taught about nutrition and how plants could be of use in human nutrition.
Well, and so you put your dad on a plant-based diet. What did that look like? What was like? I assume it's different from what you would do now, but back then, what did that look like?
Well, let me be clear. I did not place him on the diet. It was Michio Kushi.
Oh, okay.
Who we drove him up to Boston, and he saw my father, and he placed him on the most severe diet I could ever have imagined. And for those who are familiar with the macrobiotic diet or not familiar with it, it is a kind of a diet of whole plant foods. However, it was in its strictest form. It basically consisted of, a lot of dark leafy greens, especially cruciferous dark leafy greens, legumes such as lentils and beans, a lot of spices, some root vegetables, and selected grains such as brown rice, a lot of that, buckwheat, and seaweed. But it did exclude other kinds of grains. It did exclude all fruits, and it excluded, of course, animal products. And that's basically what, and oh, by the way, it did exclude nightshade vegetables and fruits. So that was the severe diet he was placed on. My mother was told to get rid of all the aluminum pots in the house and to only use stainless steel and no nonstick surfaces. And that's how he started on this new road. And
what did you see? Like what he lived longer. So did he get more energy? Did he?
He lived a year and a half instead of 1 to 3 months.
That's amazing.
But the amazing thing were a number of items. First of all, he was in severe pain as you know, pancreatic cancer can often be one of the most painful cancers there is. And his pain vanished within a day or two of starting the diet, and he was able to completely dispense with his use of narcotic pain pills. His appetite returned. He started having regular bowel movements within about a week or so of starting. He was back in his law practice. He in a couple of weeks, he was back at the gym. In another week or so after, he was running. And he had just a tremendous amount of energy, which he quickly found, and just an enormously profound sense of well-being, which was so odd because he was told he was dying just a few weeks previously. And 3 months later, we got his tumor markers and saw that they were falling.
Wow.
These tumor markers are molecules that are emitted into the blood by the tumor, and they were falling, and that matched with a CAT scan that was obtained, which showed that he had approximately a 1/3 diminution of the size of his tumors, of his major tumors. And I was shocked because, you know, I treated many patients all the time with chemo, like 5-fluorouracil, which was the standard chemo. And I had never seen that before. And this was in a man whose liver had been mostly replaced by tumor. So that was shocking. But
that is incredible.
So exciting. Yeah.
Was he skeptical? Was he skeptical about going on this? Was he like, did he think, no, this is never going to do anything?
No, because, you know, we read the testimony of this Mr. Arnold in the book. And by the way, he just died about a year or so ago. He was in his late 80s. And his case had preceded, his experience had preceded my father's by about 7 years, I think. And, you know, I have found in my medical career that human testimony is extremely powerful in convincing a patient to adopt some treatment or change their behavior, more so than a doctor talking to the patient. If you have a person with a similar illness who can give a testimony of success, it has a powerful impact on a patient with the same illness. And so that's how it worked with my father, Mr. Arnold.
Did you, after seeing all these improvements with this diet, did you change your diet? Did your mom change her diet? Did you know?
Well, yeah, we ate. Yeah, you know, I was living at home and my mother was the cook, and my mother cooked, you know, made this food, and we all ate it. My father ate it, my mother ate it, I ate it. We were the ones living in the house. So we all ate it, and, you know, I didn't like it very much. Tell you that, I thought it seemed like prison rations to me. And I didn't like it, but I ate it because my father was eating it and he had to eat it, and I wanted us to eat together. So I just did it, and my mother did it. And so it was. And at 9 months, he continued to thrive and do fantastically. You know, he had diabetes, and even that went away. Even though he had this large tumor in his pancreas, even that improved and reversed during this time. At 9 months, we got another CAT scan, and it showed a 50% reduction in his tumor markers, and his tumor markers continued to fall. So we just continued on this path, and until about a year later, and you know, he was busy in his law practice. He spent his life on 10th Avenue in Patterson, in a poor neighborhood as an attorney. And that's what he did. And that's what he loved to do. And he continued doing it. About a year later, as he was still in his practice and going to the gym and thriving, we took him back to the cancer hospital just to see maybe if we could follow up, if there were any new developments, if something new could be suggested. And when we walked in, the doctor, we were being treated by the head of the solid tumor department, the division that takes care of pancreatic cancer, of which there is a lot. And he was shocked. I noticed he was taken aback when he saw my father, because he, obviously was surprised to see that he was still alive. And when he started asking my father as to what was up and why he was there and what he had been doing, and my father started to tell him about his new behavioral and dietary changes, the doctor just was completely disinterested and switched the subject and then started talking about chemo. And that was it. Did not engage with my father any further. And I was disappointed, to say the least. Although I at the time I wasn't a lifestyle medicine doctor, and today I'm board certified in lifestyle medicine, which is the newest of all medical specialties, which deals with helping patients to make behavioral change to overcome their illnesses and prevent illnesses. Even though I didn't know anything at the time, what I did know was that I didn't know any at the time about, lifestyle medicine and what it was, because this was 25 years ago. I did know that when any patient presents to a physician with something that is startling or of interest, or perhaps it may lead to a new way of thinking about a disease, or could open up a new possibility in treatment, the physician, the inquiring physician, and the curious physician should always take note of this, observe this new finding or a comment by the patient, and think about it, and then try to further study it or incorporate it into his or her own practice. And I was just so shocked that, I didn't think I was crazy or my father was crazy or making all this up. We had CAT scan reports, and we had falling tumor markers, and he was doing well. It wasn't make-believe. That my father had not been taking chemotherapy or any other treatment. I had never known that, an end-stage pancreatic cancer could spontaneously just resolve itself and go away. So I was disappointed that the doctor just dropped it and dropped the line of communication and didn't engage with us, because I felt that my father's experience was remarkable.
I thought that's what you were going to say. Is you were going to say the doctor was, amazed, and he started bringing it into his practice. It's surprising.
No, the doctor had no interest, no use for this information. Did not see how it was relevant to the entire clinic of all the pancreatic cancer patients who were dying in his care. Wasn't interested.
It's very disappointing.
That was disappointing to me. And because it was so disappointing, I walked out of there that day, and I decided that I didn't think I would be like that, or I was not like that at the time. And I decided that I would never be like that. And that I would have an open mind, and that when I observed something occurring, I would question as to why it was occurring, and then analyze it and think about how I could use what I was learning to help the other patients that I have. And that's what I've done ever since.
So after this happened, you, I guess, changed your practice and you started to educate people on the powers of food and avoiding animal meats.
Well, not really. Not really. No, it took a long time. First, I didn't exactly understand. I knew what had happened to my father was significant and almost like magical, but I didn't exactly understand why it had happened. I knew that it had something to do with the food, that he had changed his diet, but because I wasn't trained in nutrition, I didn't understand fully why this had happened. And you have to remember that this is ancient history as far as medical nutritional science is concerned. We didn't really know why this was happening on a molecular or mechanistic physiologic basis. We've since found out. Like, for example, let's see, this was in the early 90s. My father was sick with the cancer. It wasn't until several years later that Judah Folkman out of Harvard Medical School came up, discovered the first anti-tumor treatment, which was called Avastin, which worked on blocking your internal hormones, which are called VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor, which are poured out by tumor cells to make blood vessels grow towards them, so that the little tumor cells could hijack blood vessels and grow into big tumors and spread all over your body. That's the way, basically, he isolated, that's the way tumors grow. And he developed a molecule that blocks that VEGF, that blocks the signals that are being sent to hijack blood supplies to feed tumors. And those molecules are based on plant molecules. They're based on the plants my father was eating, and all plant eaters eat. And that's one reason, a major reason, why plant eaters have less cancer. So I imagine looking back, although I didn't know it at the time, that one of the ways that my father got better was he was taking in all of these plant molecules that started to block the formation of little and the hijacking of little vascular networks to feed my father's tumors. So the tumors began to shrink. But we didn't have any of this information at the time. We've learned it since. And there's a lot of other information we've learned. So I didn't know any of this stuff. I just knew that my father was getting better, and it was because of the food he was eating, but I didn't understand why. And then with this idea in mind that I should have open-mindedness and maybe think about other things that I hadn't been taught in medical school, I began to have an attraction to alternative medicine. And at the time, Andrew Weil was the vanguard of the field of alternative medicine. And I began to follow him. And he had some dietary advice, but it wasn't the advice of whole plant foods. But I sort of took a hybrid approach, and I refined myself, my practice, and the basis of it was whole plant foods. But I didn't understand that although I continued to prescribe largely a whole plant food diet, there were still, I did make allowances for small amounts of animal proteins that were in the diet, especially fish. And I did meet with success with my patient population, but in I guess it was 2009, perhaps, or 2007. I can't remember when the China study came out. I read the China study soon after it came out by Colin Campbell. I read that book, and when I read the information in it, I closed the covers, and I myself said, I cannot do this anymore, and I can't eat animal proteins. And I put the book down, and from then on, I became fully embedded in only eating and only recommending diets of whole plant foods for patients.
So let's fast forward to 2011. You purchased 342-acre farm in Long Valley, and you started your Ethos Health business. Farming's a hard business. How are you a doctor and a farmer? Like, how do you balance that?
It is a hard business. We're trying to still every day figure out the farming piece of it. The hardships of farming it's very difficult although the farm land is very big, it's 342 acres, and it was a conventional farm for, in the 20th century, growing conventional crops. It was initially a conventional dairy farm, perhaps the largest and busiest in the state. And then, it was a conventional crop farm growing, GMO soybean and corn for many years until I took it over. Growing real whole plant foods that are grown without chemicals, regeneratively and organically, is a very great challenge, especially in the state of New Jersey, and especially with very few resources and on a small scale. So we're always trying to figure out how to make it economically viable. We still struggle to this day.
Did you decide to farm because you weren't finding around produce that you wanted to give to your patients, or did you just find a love for farming? Or
no, well, I've since I was grew my first seeds with my mother at age 4. I'd always loved growing plants, always, and always wanted to be a farmer since I was a child. And when I got married late in life, when I was about 43, and we had I married my wife, Deborah, we had these 2 small children, and the sun rose and set on these children. And when I looked at them, at the time, there was this growing drumbeat of environmental warnings. And I just became increasingly frustrated as I adopted more and more of a philosophy of food as medicine. I began to understand that all of the diseases I was seeing in my patient were a result of our industrialized food system. All of the diabetes and the heart attacks and the strokes and the lupus and the rheumatoid arthritis, they were all coming from the way we farmed and the way our food system fed people. And I decided that because food was the basis of human health, and I was so frustrated that I should go and put the two together and figure out how, in a local setting, I could provide good food for the community and to feed them and make them healthy. And that's where the farm and the embeddedness of the practice on the farm came from. So people would get their health from the land, and I could be kind of not only the steward of the land, but the steward of the people in the community, because they could come and I can point them the way.
And I would think it really teaches your patients where the food comes from so they can really understand.
It does. When you eat today and you're a New Jerseyan, 98% of the time, it is likely that you are eating something that came from somewhere and you don't know where that place was. You don't know how it was grown. It's probably somewhere in California or Mexico or God knows where. And you don't know what the cost was that was exacted from the earth in order to feed you. And I think that when people come here, they understand how precious food is.
And also, right. And also, eating seasonally, people think, oh, you can get strawberries all season long or what, or.
Exactly.
And then coming to you, they probably learn like, oh no, why can't I eat this now? Well, you can't really grow that now.
No, exactly. And that's why when our strawberries come out, it causes somewhat of a delirium or a pandemonium, because the strawberries, they're only going to be here for 2 or 3 weeks, and that's it. And they're different than the strawberries from California. They're fragile, and they have an aroma to them that smells like perfume. They don't last for more than 3 days. You have to get them, you have to pick them, and you have to eat them. And they're more precious because, they're grown regeneratively. They come from they're grown sustainably.
Right. So you offer your patients now immediate access to a wide assortment of vegetables and fruit. And then you train your patients to eat and select their produce, I guess. Can you tell me what do you grow on the farm? How many different things?
Well, we're a mixed vegetable fruit operation. We grow vegetables and fruits. As I mentioned to you before, for the first time, we will be collaborating with River Valley Community Grains and a local farmer, Tom Moak, to grow grains for the first time in our organic certified field this year. But we grow a wide variety of vegetables. Let's say if you were to go into the produce market of the produce department of a supermarket, you'd find essentially all the vegetables that are there in the produce market we grow here. And oftentimes it's a more profound selection because we grow many different varieties. Let's say, for example, for the tomato, you go into a supermarket, you'll only find, let's say, cherry tomatoes and red tomatoes. But here you'll find maybe 12 different kinds of heirloom tomatoes and maybe like 8 different kinds of cherry tomatoes and so on and so forth. And we also like to grow unusual varieties of things which people may not see very often. For example, there is a delicious green which is called yakatana, which is it's in the cruciferous family. It comes from Japan, and it's very nice because it is a very leafy, mildly flavored cruciferous green that is crunchy and unlike most other greens, this one does not fade out during the heat of the summer, and it makes it through the summer and has luxuriant growth. So we can supply this to our customers through the summer. And then we grow. We have some fruits. We have melons that we grow here, and berries, strawberries, and blueberries. We have grown raspberries. Someday we've set aside an orchard, and we hope to, in the future, have a community orchard growing tree fruits like apples, including, lost New Jersey heirloom apples and pears and cherries and plums and peaches.
That's amazing. So you educate your patients about food. Are they all open to seeing food as medicine? And how do you do this? Like, how do you educate them?
Well, in a number of ways. First of all, we have the Ethos Farm Project. The Ethos Farm Project consists of a number of activities including our Young Incubator Farmers program, where we take young farmers, give them our land, housing, and mentorship, and teach them how to be farmers. We have the Ethos Farm Ecosystem and Carbon Trial, EFFECT, EFECT, which is a soil research project, which we're collaborating with the Rodale Institute and Rutgers University, where we took a 100-acre corn, soybean, conventional field, and we're covering it with the prairie grasses that were native to our valley for thousands of years. And we're studying its effects, the effects of doing that on sucking CO2 out of the air and burying it in the soil. And the last part is the Ethos Farm Days. And those are fabulous events that occur in the summertime, where we have world-class speakers. They're educational events, and we teach the community what the connection is between regenerative agriculture and eating a plant-based diet and what it can do for your health. So our inaugural season was last year. They were very popular. Each event drew hundreds of people to the farm, and we had to suspend them this year because we can't have large numbers of people gathering in one place. But it is our hope that we will reconstitute these Farm Day educational events for 2021 with a big festival, a weekend festival that occurs on the farm, with all these speakers and activities and music and concerts. And that's a main way we try to educate the community. We educate the community through our farm market. When people come off the road, our vegetable presentations always have the nutritional information as to how these vegetables and plants can help you. I give open houses where people are welcome to come. They were once a month before we were shut down by the pandemic, but people are always welcome to come as soon as we can open them again. And I give presentations about how lifestyle medicine can reverse and prevent chronic disease.
Your farm is organic, certified organic, or is it sustainable? Is that did I read that right, or is it just?
It's a 342-acre farm. Half of it is covered in woods and forest, and they're the source of the wetlands and streams that eventually form the south branch of the Raritan River. So, and then the other half are prime soils. They're fields that are cultivated for farming. And when we got here, we took off a 15-acre field in the front, and we turned that into our vegetable fruit operation. And that is certified organic. The rest of the cropland, the 100 or 30 so acres, are in varying stages of restoration. Some of them have been restored for about 4 or 5 years. The last piece, which is the one I told you about, the 100 acres, is about to be planted in 2 weeks from now with these native grasses. And, after that occurs, we hope never to have these lands see chemicals ever again.
Can you, a lot of the listeners probably know why organic, but can you tell me why you grow organic or beyond organic?
I would like to say beyond organic, because organic certification doesn't always take into consideration the health of the world around us. It's a step, but it's not the ultimate step. And the reason why I think it's important is a number of reasons. First of all, I don't believe as a physician that it's wise to eat your food with a side of poison on it. It just doesn't make sense to me that food is, as I learned so many years ago, so important to reversing and preventing disease. And here we're dousing poisons. We're dousing it with poisons when we grow it. And we eat these poisons. And we can measure them flowing out of our urine and the urine of our children. It makes no sense to me.
It's scary to me too. I 100% agree with you. I was just
you have your own diet.
So
Go ahead.
That's the first reason. The second reason is that it should be clear to us by now that these poisons are killing off the earth. We find them everywhere. The U.S. Geological Survey measures about 10 to 12 regularly different pesticides and agricultural chemicals that are raining down upon us from the sky. This cannot have a good effect on bees and native pollinators and insects and us and when we drink it. So the way of growing food with these chemicals that we have is destroying our environment. I can't partake in that.
Can you have your own special diet, the Ethos Diet? Can you talk about that? Like what is the Ethos Diet?
So it basically is it's a high level of whole plant-based foods diet. And when I say a high level, it means with a focus on the most nutritious of the whole plant foods, which is dark leafy greens and spices, with a predominant focus on those aspects, in addition to all the other whole plant foods like fruits and vegetables and legumes and starches and seeds and nuts. And that the Ethos Diet recommends that these foods be produced and grown at the highest level, regeneratively, without the use of pesticides and agricultural chemicals, and that they come from a living soil that contains the life of the soil, which is on the plant, and then which the eater, ingests as a source of probiotics. So that's what the Ethos Diet is.
So currently, New Jersey has been, what are we on, stay-at-home orders, maybe 5 weeks now, and we have the second highest rate of COVID-19 in the country. Have you been seeing patients?
I have been seeing patients. I work several shifts a week at a busy urgent care center several of them in New Jersey, and I did actually I took care of the first diagnosed COVID-19 patient in the state. So I do that, and also I still continue to I have my primary care practice on the farm, and although because that's more of a non-urgent setting, we take care of it's a primary care practice, lifestyle medicine, and we suspended seeing patients in person for our Ethos primary care practice, but we do see all of those primary care patients online now over a telemedicine platform.
Do you, the coronavirus patients you've seen, do you prescribe a diet to them or anyone who's now?
I try to. I try to. Someone having a fever of 102 degrees and it can't breathe is probably looking at me a little oddly when I try to tell them about eating plants. However, I see it as essential because we know that eating such a diet definitely does bolster your immune system and prevent poor outcomes in acute viral illnesses like this. We have evidence. So I'm trying to help them, and I think it's necessary for me to tell them this, even when they come in acutely ill. The other thing is that I've noticed that the majority of the people who I see in urgent care who come in with the coronavirus have chronic diseases like diabetes and hypertension and coronary disease and rheumatoid arthritis and immune deficiencies and Alzheimer's and, so on and so forth. And all of these are known from our experiences in Wuhan and across the globe to significantly increase the chance that you will have a poor outcome, either death or severe sickness or respiratory failure when you get COVID-19. So I would like these patients to get rid of their chronic diseases and treat them instead of with medicines to reverse them and get rid of them with diet. And so I introduce them to the ideas of eating plants.
Are there preventative foods or plant-based medicines that you would suggest that every one of us use right now to boost their immunity against this virus or anything?
Yes. So the overall most important thing that you can do is perhaps 3 or 4-fold. Number one, eat a rich and diverse diet of whole plant foods, and do not eat processed plant foods such as oils and junk vegan foods like potato chips or Oreo cookies that have very little, candy bars, things that have no nutritive value. The second thing you can do is avoid foods that come from animals, because they are usually the primary. They form a primary starting point for the formation of chronic diseases. The third thing that you can do is to focus on and make sure that you get daily amounts of a few superstars that have been shown to immunologically support you in your fight against viruses. And that would be garlic. I myself eat probably about 2 bulbs a day roasted.
Oh, that's a lot of garlic.
Yes. Well, garlic has been shown to increase populations of natural killer cells, which are the lymphocytes that are the first line of attack that attack viruses. And the garlic organizes and calms and makes more efficient humoral immunity. Those are all those molecules. They're the network of molecules that direct the army of soldiers or white blood cells in your immune system to coordinate their attacks. And this humoral network, the network is also known as cytokines. This is the network that becomes enraged when people start to go into respiratory distress and need to go on a ventilator with COVID-19. So we want to make sure that these networks stay intact and don't go kerblooey. And so eating garlic can help that to happen.
What are some of the other superstars?
Mushrooms. I eat on average about 8 to 12 ounces of cooked, just white button mushrooms daily. And mushrooms have been shown in controlled prospective studies to increase IgA significantly from your mucosal linings. IgA are secretory antibodies that are produced on the linings of your GI and GI tract and your respiratory tract. These are the antibodies that first encounter the virus when they enter us. And lastly, cruciferous vegetables, the broccoli, kale, collards, Brussels sprouts, that kind of family. That has been demonstrated to alert our immune system in our gut and to help make it better organized and defend us more vigorously against attack. So those are the three I focus on, but don't forget all the other things. Don't forget pomegranates, and don't forget, lemons, and don't forget carrots. It's the more different components, the more different colors you have, and the more variety, the more richly serviced your immune system is.
It's funny because my next question was going to be about mushrooms that Paul Stamets.
I don't know if you know Paul Stamets. He talks about the miraculous power
I
of
do.
Turkey.
He's a superstar.
Turkey tail and lion's mane. And mushrooms to me are just incredible. They're not only incredible to our health, but they're incredible to keep the health of the planet. The mycelium are really important. So I'm glad that's one of the things that, we should be eating, because not only do I love them, they're just an amazing thing for our earth. So I've taken up a lot of your time. So I have one final question. Do you have suggestions for good plant-based cookbooks or websites that people can find recipes to make all these, because I run a CSA and people are always asking me, I got a kohlrabi. What do I do with it? Can you ask, is there a cookbook? Do you have recipes? So what do you tell your patients and the people who come to your CSA?
There are many good cookbooks. Some examples are the How Not to Die cookbook. I like that one. The Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease cookbook by Jane and Ann Esselstyn. Those are two good cookbooks.
Do you give your members recipes? With your CSA or?
Yes, we have. We do give recipes. I'm just trying to think. Yes, specifically in every newsletter that goes out every week, there's a recipe that comes out in the weekly advisory for the farm stand, and we also for the Ethos primary care practice patients who go into the educational course, they always get recipes and actually have cooking classes where they actually cooking demonstrations help them to learn how to cook these great foods.
Oh, that's great. You should start doing Zoom classes. I take one.
Yeah. I'll put that on the list. Also, we like a book called Straight Up Food by Kathy Fisher.
Straight Up Food. Okay, great. So, is there anything else you wanted me to tell everyone to know about you? Or, I'll put in the show notes to your website. I really love what you're doing. And, I always believed that, our healthcare system needs to be holistic, and we take everything apart and it's very mechanistic, and you have to know what you eat and, be part of a whole system. And you're doing that from growing to eating to helping patients. And it's fantastic. And I wish there were more people like you out there.
Thank you. Thank you so much for telling me that.
Yeah. So
I think if I had to say one last thing, it's that I know that when people look at me, the majority of people must think that this is something that is so hard. Because I know I talk to people in urgent care and the public in general, and they always wonder, well, I can't eat leaves for the rest of my life, or I can't give up this or that. And, I've eaten this way all of my life. I don't want to change. Food is such a personal and has a profound effect on all of us since we're born. And I would say that it's okay. Rome was not built in a day, and we have, in our practice, we have many avenues for people to engage in a better way of living. And you don't have to do it all at once. Just because you come to see me, or you step on this farm, or you make an appointment, I'm not going to put you in a prison camp and feed you, slip leaves underneath your door and lock you in for the rest of your life. That's not the way it works. I always like to help anybody, no matter what stage of engagement they're in. And you always have to remember, just improve your diet, even if it's only by 20%, you'll get 20% improved outcomes. So the more you improve, the more benefit you will get. For many people, it's a gradual process. Some people like to dive in and completely transform themselves, but not most people. So I don't want people to be afraid of embracing change. There are gentle ways to do it, and we can do it in your own way, in your own time, and we love to help people like that. So lifestyle medicine is where it's at. That's what I practice. And that's all to say.
Well, thank you so much. And I will definitely come out when I can. I want to come to your festival. I would love to even help you out with it and, get people there, because it's definitely something that I am passionate about. I've been doing my CSA for about 13 years now, and I just love bringing organic, fresh produce to the community. And, you've just opened my eyes to another thing about being a doctor and a farmer, and it's just great. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, Dr. Weiss, for taking the time to speak with me. I love what you are doing, and I am looking forward to coming to the farm soon. To find out more about Dr. Weiss, the Ethos Farm Project, and anything going on at his farm, head over to the show notes or take a look at my website, eatwelltraveloften.net. You can reach me via email, melissa@eatwelltraveloften.net, or on Facebook or Instagram, Eat Well Travel Often Podcast. Be well, eat well, and please stay at home.